These are the pieces that come with the hook blade kit. You have the main case, you have a back plug, you have 3 parts that are actually connected together. This is the front lock and the 2 sub locks. You have the hook slider and the nice big bird hook head, and then you have the first tier and the second tier. Now, if you receive your kit from Shapeways and one of these parts is missing or is damaged, there's a link in the description for you to email Shapeways. They are the people that I submit my designs to. They do the 3D printing and they do the shipping. So you can contact them and tell them what's broken and what's missing, and they do a really good job of getting replacement parts and fixing their mistakes. Also, if you have any questions about where Shapeways ships to, how much shipping is, or how much the kit is, I have links both to a shipping information page, and I also have a link to the actual product buying page, which will show you what the price is in US dollars. Now, this is for the hook blade kit. I have another kit for a more Altier-esque blade, and it uses pretty much the exact same design as the hook blade. The only difference is it doesn't have a hook. So I'm going to show the assembly of this hook system. However, if you did get the other kit, just know, follow the exact same instructions and just ignore anything that has to do with these 2 parts. So when you get your parts, the first thing you should do, other than making sure you have all your pieces, is to start cleaning them. Because the way the process works, these are made out of SLS nylon. SLS stands for selectively laser sintered, which basically means they have a giant tub of ground up nylon, super fine powder, and then a laser melts it together selectively to build your parts. But as a result, when you get the parts, they're still going to be covered in that powder. And the best way to clear out that powder I have found is to actually do a little bit of kind of test assembly. Put your first tier and your second tier together and kind of move them around. And you'll free up the powder, and you just keep moving it around, twist them so that you get into all the nooks and crannies and crevices. The other thing you can do, same thing with your main case, is put your first tier in here backwards and help clear this guy out. Put it through here. Keep twisting everything around, come at it from all different angles. And then for your smaller parts, and even for some of your main parts, an old toothbrush works really well to get in there, kind of scrub around. And then also, especially for your main case, it's really good, especially with this center channel here, to kind of get in there and just really start. So the next thing you need to do is there's some holes in these parts that we're going to run pins through. And so you need to clear out those holes, because they'll also have powder stuck in them. Now, a lot of the smaller or more shallow holes will come clear and you won't have to do anything with them, but some of the deeper holes you'll have to clear out. And the best way I found to do that is to take a little piece of paper clip it off, and chuck it into a hand drill or a Dremel, or just grab a piece of it with a pair of pliers and work it with your hands. So I'll run you through where the holes are. The holes are really easy to find because all the holes have chamfers that lead into them. So even if they are blocked up, you'll see exactly where they're supposed to be. So the first one is right here in this main piece here, the first tier, and it's right here, and it runs all the way through. So you just clear that out with a little bit of Dremel. Now there's 2 more holes, one here and one here, and these hold on those side locks, and these ones usually come out pretty clean. You see I can fit a paper clip just by hand, so I don't have to clear those out. There's a nice long one that runs all the way through the middle of your back plug. You can see right through there. And then there's 2 holes that go with that associate here in the main case. You can see also with a little bit of pushing I can just do that by hand, and that goes all the way through. And then there's 2 more here at the front which link all the way through, and if those are clogged up, just go ahead and clear those out. Now there's actually a couple sets of holes on these pieces, and so the easiest thing to do is to clear out some of the holes, and then I'll show you the next part. So there's 2 holes that run straight through this part, and then there's a hole here and a hole here. So you see, you just line that guy up. Do the same thing on this side, and then do the same thing on these 2 little small guys here, and one here. Now there's actually a hole that runs all the way down the center of this part, and so what's easiest to do and what you should do is grab yourself a pair of clippers and clip off these 2 little thin pieces here and here, and then also remove the leftover vestigial bits from your plugs, excuse me, your stops. So that way you end up with 2 pieces and then this guy here. And then that way it's very easy to clear out this last hole that runs all the way through this part and out the front. There's another set of holes here in your hook slider. Runs all the way through there. And then there's another one that runs through sideways that helps you hold on the hook. And the last two are actually in the hook. You can see there's a little indent here, which runs all the way through there, and there's one just like it on the other side. Once you have all your holes cleared out, what you need to do is do a little bit of test assembly and probably some sanding. And so all you need to do is to make sure that all of your parts slide through nice and smooth and that nothing gets stuck. If anything gets stuck, then what you're going to need to do is sand some objects. And now I used, this is 400 grit sandpaper. I go ahead and recommend just give everything, all of these parts, a good light sanding with the 400 grade. It smooths out some of the rough texturing and it makes everything run by smoother. And it also gives you a little bit more extra, a little bit of extra room when you start doing your painting and your finishing. So now that you've finished all of your sanding and everything's smooth and sexy, the next thing you need to do is to do a full assembly just to test everything out, make everything sure it's working. Then you can disassemble it, finish it up, and then reassemble it. So for your first assembly, what you're going to need is some paper clips, and you're going to need some miniature rubber bands. These are 1/4 heavy elastic bands, are used for hair and orthodontics. I'll have a link to these in the description. But all you need to do, and the assembly of this is actually fairly simple, take your main case and your first tier and find the little line here on this this tier and make sure that points down and slide this guy in. And you'll see it'll find its end point there. And then what you can do is you take this back piece and you jam this guy in and make sure you get this the right way up. There's a short pin and a long pin. The longer pin goes towards the bottom. And then you just kind of press that guy in there. And then you can take your piece of paper clip and you just jam it all the way through and to the bottom. And then for final assembly, you'd go ahead and use a pair of clippers and just clip that off. But for now, since we're going to be disassembling it again, not a huge issue. Next piece is the second tier, slides in there. And then take here again another paper clip, and this guy will go all the way through. And to do a full test, we're going to have to clip this guy off. So get it flush on the bottom, and then get this guy flush on the top. If need be, pull up just a little bit to give yourself a little bit more extra headroom. Clip it off and press it down in there. And this is a good point to tell you that when you're drilling out these pins, it's better if it's a very tight fit than if it's really loose. If you can barely jam a paper clip in there with a pair of pliers, it's better than if you fully clear it out too much, because then otherwise you're going to have to glue this pin back in and it gets really awkward. So a tighter fit on these pins is better. Next thing you need to test fit is actually these pieces here. These are your side locks, your sub locks. And so if you look closely, you can see that there's a notch in these parts. That notch needs to point out. So grab 2 of your rubber bands, and then all you need to do is take your paper clip, put it through one of the holes, just enough so it sticks out, and then place one of the rubber bands over the paper clip, like so. Then take your latch, again, little notch pointing outward, drop that in, push it all the way onto the paper clip. Then grab your rubber band, make sure it's on the top. Then what you need to do is back out this paper clip until it's going just through the actual latch. So there's still a hole on the other side. And grab another paper clip, and then all you need to do is basically fold this rubber band over and then push it through. And then remove this paper clip so it's kind of a C shape, and then you go straight through to the other side. So you have the paper clip that's looped over both ends now, and so that way you can grab the back end and pull nice and hard, and then the other end will fall into that little notch that I've been showing you. And then all you have to do is pull up, and what helps is just use another paper clip to pull up, hook over this front latch, and then just latch your rubber band over the front. And so what you should have is something that does this now. Oops, excuse me, something that does that. But first, just as a test, go ahead and back that paper clip back out. Get it, ding, flipped off. So again, let's do that on the other side. With these guys in place and everything working, now you should have a blade that when you point up, everything closes up. When you point down, everything points down and yet locks. Now if you find that you're getting like the blade won't open all the way, there's too much friction, you'll need to sand down these side edges to smooth them out, and then you'll also need to sand the inner surfaces, excuse me, of these little tabs. But what you're looking for is a nice good lock there. When you push it in, it should close. Now then, you got one more latch to handle, and that's your front latch. So go ahead and close everybody up. Now this guy lines up right here on the front, and make sure that these weird little hooky guys are pointing towards the bottom. And then just run it through with a paper clip. If you find it's a little tight, which I just found mine is, you can go ahead and blast it again with a little bit more of your Dremel love. There you go, that's a little bit better, smoother fit. There we go. So in this one, it's actually okay to have a little bit of a loose fit on these outer ones, but you want a tight fit on these inner ones, otherwise the whole paper clip will want to slide out. And just fold this guy down, get to the edge, and clip that off. And you can kind of work this back and forth a couple times to smooth out. If you find that there's kind of like a clicking point where like it seems to want to get stuck, it's probably because you have some of the vestige left over from where the two other lashes were connected. So just use your clippers or use some sandpaper to smooth those guys down until this guy will do a full 180 without any issue. So then, now it's time to hook on some of these pieces. So you're going to need two more of your rubber bands, and these ones also run in a interesting fashion. What you need to do is hook it over the front hooks here, and if you find that your hooks are a little bit jammed up, you might need to clean them out with your friend here. But hook them over there, pull them over to the side, and then hook them over this side piece. But you're not done yet. Take a paper clip, you need to hook them over this side piece here as well, which helps aim this guy around the edge, and then when you pull back slightly and then use your paper clip and simply push this whole thing up and over so that it goes through these top latches, because you want the rubber band to run over the top and then around these sides. So showing you that again, this time zoomed in, you just hook it over the front here, just like so. Hook it over, pull it over until it hooks on to the side, latched on, and then just use a paper clip and pull it up until it goes into that top little notch. And then when you roll it down the side here, make sure it goes behind these sub ears, which help aim it. And so what you'll see is that when you flip it 180, it will actually latch open, which is convenient for testing, but also when you get it to about 45 degrees, it's going to snap itself closed. And that's what you want. And so now you just have your two last parts, which again, if you're making this version, you can skip, but if you're making the hook version, you have your hook parts that you need to assemble on. So go ahead and flip this guy 180, dump this guy out, then take your hook slider and your hook, and you're going to need another rubber band, and you're also going to need a paper clip of slightly different make. Go ahead and straighten one of these paper clips out, grab a pair of pliers or a pair of clippers, and just flip it and make it into a little hook, because you're going to need that in a minute. So the first thing you need to do is take your rubber band, and you're going to need to jam it into this hole here in the back of the eagle's head. And so just take a normal paper clip and just kind of mush that into the hole. And then you'll see that there's a little tab, a little hook on the inside that you need to push this down and pull through, so it's nicely hooked on there. Then take your eagle head and your eagle hook slider, take another paper clip, and then go ahead and run the head through and all the way through the slider, lining up all these holes here. Gotta get here. Let me get the first two, then get this guy in very carefully. another one, another one, another one. Alright, so with those guys all in, you can go ahead and clip this guy off. Now, what you need to do is with your new handy dandy hook tool, inside you need to stick this hook all the way through, and you need to make sure it's going underneath this white bar. And then all you need to do is with your hook, reach up here, grab onto your hook, rotate it so that now you can go back underneath that white bar and then just pull. And then on the inside there's another hook that you need to drop the rubber band around. Right there on the inner surface. It's a little hard to get a good view on, but there's a hook right there. And so what that will do is it will hook from here around that pivot point to here, and this creates the pop-up spring that makes your little bird head pop up when you open it and then allows it to shut when it's closed. And all you need to do to finish up is take this head part, put it over the end, and you'll feel some friction. You need to push it all the way over that friction. There's two little nubs in there that help hold the hook in place. And so you got to push past those nubs, which is important that you don't sand off those nubs. They live on the inside of that slider piece. And then all you need to do is take another piece of paper clip, go all the way through, and simply clip that piece off as well. And so that paper clip stops this piece from going any farther than it needs to. So then, the last thing you need to do is grab yourself a piece of fishing line. This is 0.5 millimeter diameter fishing line I have here. Just go ahead and tie yourself a nice double knot in the end, and then take this other end and run it right up that center hole in your front lock. Push that guy through and just pull it all the way out. And eventually you'll tie this off to the right distance, but I'll show you that after we have finished it. But just to do a quick test, all you need to do is you pull open this door. You'll see the head starts to open up. Point everybody down. And release. So the door will lock this first tier. That's what's holding this as a nice little A-frame. These two lock this main bar here from tab to tier 1 to tier 2. And then this guy is held up purely by friction on this part, which so you can just jiggle that guy down, slide that back open. When you point everybody up, it should stay in its happy-go-lucky vertical position, and then simply pull back on here again. Everything should drop into place, and then you simply drop this guy back down, and that's what actually holds everybody from opening back up. Now you're ready to just pull all the pins back out, remove all the rubber bands, and you can go ahead and do yourself a little bit of painting. As you can tell from all the shiny bits of foil and all the black paint snuck underneath my fingernails, I have finished detailing these two kits. And the way I've done it, and there's a lot of different ways you can go about it, I use foil tape, which is basically just aluminum foil stickers, and I basically just coat everything inside and out, making sure to stay away from any of the bearing surfaces if need be, and then cutting anything back if it causes too much friction. And you basically just apply it like a sticker and make sure you kind of stretch it gently and smooth everything out. And then I use a clay tool, this guy here, to kind of help smooth everything down, to kind of smooth out all the edges, and you work your way through it. And if you are going to use foil tape, here's something that I've run into. Different brands of foil tape will look exactly the same, however they have a very different reaction. This is a roll I got, and you can test this out before you buy it in a store. If you grab a piece and tear it, and then pull, if it kind of leaves this weird, you can see this transparent connector, this is bad stuff. This is going to be very difficult to work with. What you want is a variety, and I use Nasha tape. Nasha. What you want is a tape that when you do that pull test, you want it to simply, when you pull on it, you just want to rip it apart. It doesn't leave any kind of gooey, nasty trail. And that's because certain brands use a thicker, more temperature compliant adhesive. You want the thin adhesive, and it actually happens to end up being the thicker, cheaper varieties use the thinner adhesive. So that's just a little tip. The other options you can use rub and buff. I've done that on some of my other kits. You can also use silver spray paint. That'll work just fine. Again, just make sure that you spray everything down thin, and then when you put everything back together, be willing to bust out, your 100 or 300 or 200 grit sandpaper to sand off any edges or bearing surfaces that have a little bit too much grit on them. So now you're ready for your finishing touches and actually putting it on your arm. So you'll need some straps and a ring and a little piece of foam and maybe some double stick tape or some glue. Stick this on the bottom. It's actually a very important part, and I'll run through why that is in a second. As for strapping, you can use leather straps. I'm using some Velcro ones here. These ones came from some shin guards. You can use whatever matches your costume, whatever you have lying around. Go ahead and strap it to your arm, and when you do that, there's a couple pointers. One, strap it to the side of your arm, not the top of your arm, and that helps so that you can bend your elbow without getting the hidden blade stuck kind of in your elbow pit. Strap it down well on the back to hold everything in place, and strap it loosely in the front. And this is for comfort, and this is where the first use of this piece of foam comes in. It allows you to keep this loose, so that way when you rotate your arm, this doesn't move the entire 90 degrees. It only moves a portion of it, and yet it still stays firm and in place. The second reason is that the hidden blade works better, and I think generally looks better, if it acts on the same axis as your bone. And because this part of your arm is thicker than this part of your arm, you need a little spacer to keep these guys on the same plane. And the third reason, and actually the most important reason, is for functionality. For this door system to work, it needs to be able to be pulled past 180 degrees. And in order to do that, you need some room behind here so that the door can swing out. And what this allows us to do is it lets these little feet on the hook to slide past, and it also keeps all the friction off of this surface while it's opening and closing. If you don't open it enough, if you were to leave this piece of foam out, the little ears would just get stuck. And so it's important to give yourself enough room so that that can slide all the way open. So the last thing you need to do is to take your ring. You can use either your thumb or your pinky. You simply pull your piece of fishing line taut, and then using a Sharpie marker, just mark off where it sits, and then go ahead and take off your ring, take off the hidden blade, and then tie a knot. I've actually tied a little hook onto mine so I can disconnect and reconnect different rings. But now when you lean your arm backwards, you're not pulling on the door. But when you lean forward, you can grab this extra loop of string that pops forward, and now when you pull back, you've removed all that excess slack, and now you can activate it and deactivate it. And to use it, as you saw in the very beginning of the video, all you have to do is pull back, you point your arm down, gravity will drop everything out. When everything is dropped out, you simply relax, this will fall in and everything's now locked. When you want to close it, point your arm up, pull back on the locks, and gravity will push everything back down and in. Quick pointer, when you have this on your arm, make sure that your fishing line is not twisted, which tends to happen sometimes when you're putting it on, and make sure that it's angled inward so it forms a nice loop that goes across your palm. That way when you lean forward, you'll get a single loop. If you have it twisted, if you have it pointed out, obviously you're not going to be able to reach it, but even if you have it twisted, you can see as you bend forward, it's going to kind of get twisted up, and it makes it a little bit harder to grab onto. So hopefully you guys have found this video useful, either as an assembly guide for a kit you've purchased, which I thank you for that, or as just a general showing of how to put together a certain prop and some weird finishing techniques. I will remind everyone that this has my safety tip on there, and you can see with differential painting it looks really nice and yet is 100% con safe. This kit is made, designed, and the materials have been chosen specifically to make it a con safe cosplay prop. I understand some people may want to modify this. My recommendation is that you don't do that, and any modification that you do is outside of my responsibility as the creator and designer, and the responsibility of Shapeways as the manufacturer. They're intended as cosplay props, and even when built like they are right now, and being 100% con safe. Not everyone will know that, so be smart and be careful with how and where you use these, because there can be real world consequences to your cosplay prop. The other thing I will say, speaking of cosplay, is this guy is obviously a really good choice for Revelations. Also happens to be my favorite hidden blade design. The more general assassin blade, depending on how you finish it, will work really, really well for a pretty good variety of costumes. Using different foils and different stick-down vinyls, you can cover everything from Assassin's Creed 1, Assassin's Creed 2, Brotherhood, maybe add some skulls to it and you've got Assassin's Creed 4, and you can go crazy with it on any of your kind of more original or quasi-original Assassin's costumes. And also just a quick reminder, if you've done Assassin's Creed 3 costumes, I have a kit that's inspired by that, and I also have a more modern or futuristic version of the Assassin's Creed 3 blade as well. If you're interested in any of these guys, just hop over to either my Shapeways page and you can get them as kits, or take a look at some of my videos, which I have links to on my Facebook page, that show off how all of these guys go together. And with that, good luck on your projects and have a fun time cosplaying.